Good morning, all. How are you today? Hi, DGB. Anyone? Here I am. Today is going to be another overcast, rainy day here in, I guess, sort of north central Connecticut. So, anyway, hey neighbor, how you doing? I thought we better talk about these new tariffs that Trump has put in place, and what is going to be the effect of this on watch collectors. Hi D, hi Caesar, how you doing? And at least give you my take on what's going on, and some, in my opinion, only is some very misguided economics, but that's just my opinion. I know Biggie Sal, how you doing? Velvia man, good to see you. On your way to sunny but cool Scotland. Is it ever nice and warm in Scotland? I don't know. Well, hey, you got maybe one of the upshots of global warming is Scotland's going to be the new Rio de Janeiro, the beaches of Scotland. Hi, Dom. How you doing? Good to see you. I believe the tariffs will reduce the demand from the U.S. market and reduce overall prices. Oh, reducing prices sounds good. Hi, D. Only insight. Hi, Brian. Good to see you. Hey, how's everything going? I saw the all of the big floods down in Nashville. Just making sure everything's okay on your end there. Hey Dan, how are you? Gilberto, good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, Gilberto. Glad you could make it today. Charles, how are you? Oh, it's always lovely in Scotland. I was in Scotland a long time ago, and I went to Edinburgh, and I had an interview with a guy who had been involved in gangs and homicide, and he was charming. I really enjoyed talking to the guy. That's when I was at the Institute of Criminology at Cambridge for a Lent term back in the day. That's Jesus, it's like 40 years ago now. I don't know. Has anything changed since then? Yeah, no, I like I said, I think the Scots are cool for lots and lots of reasons. Hi, Jeff. I wake up excited to pay more for everything. Oh, hey, Mark. Oh, good. Live from W&W. Yeah, I hear at Watches and Wonders in Geneva, this whole tariff thing is under a big discussion. Dominic, the key word is reciprocal. Unfortunately, Dominic, that's the word that's been using. The reality is something very different. What I found out in looking into this whole thing, and I think it was like January 2004, 2024, the Swiss took away all tariffs that applied to the U.S. Um, the there's a lot of misunderstanding and misinformation about the whole thing, and that's what I wanted to talk about. Um, reciprocal would be fine, but there's how can you say reciprocal when there are other kinds of problems? Okay, right now there's a big trade deficit with the US and just about everybody. Okay. We're buying stuff like mad. doing manufacturing things with textiles and all kinds of other things and selling them mostly to one another. And so we don't have a lot of exports. There's a $38 billion um, imbalance between trade with the U.S. and Switzerland. And that's because we like to buy their watches, and we don't have a whole lot other than maybe iPhones and Apple watches and some things like that. But it doesn't add up to the amount of other things we're buying from Switzerland. Well, that's back in the 19th century, back in the 1800s, people thought that was a good idea to have these tariffs. Well, they didn't work then. There was a big problem with it, and now we're going to run into it again. No, they don't buy much from us. It's not a matter of like there's simply nobody does. What the problem is, the major exports the U.S. has is electronic gizmos, raw resources like oil. I was surprised to see that, and some other things. And cars aren't doing too well exporting. Now, if there was a tit for tat on that I could understand. But what's happened is Trump got in his head. Goes back to the 1980s. He's always thought tariffs were great, and everybody told him they weren't. I mean, no matter what you say to this guy, he doesn't use data. Now, there are a lot of things that I wish that the Chinese or the Europeans or the Africans or the North American, the Canadians or the Mexicans, I mean, like, okay, you should do this better, you should do this. Well, there's tit for tat. That's one thing. But what we really have is a trade deficit. And I suppose that's one of the reasons we have a trade deficit is that our companies, American companies, would rather buy really cheap stuff made in, especially in textiles and a lot of other things that bring a lot of money from somewhere else. And so I think this whole thing is, there are other ways to go about it if you want to have a better balance. Look what happens with Switzerland and the U.S. as far as VAT. VAT was one of the things that was used as, oh, see, they're against ours. That's not against ours. It's like a sales tax. If somebody from Switzerland comes to the United States and buys something in New York, and they'll be charged something like a sales tax. They have a state sales tax and a city sales tax. And I think it comes to about 8.1%, which is about the same thing that the VAT is in Switzerland. But here's the difference. When let's say the Swiss buyer goes down to Fifth Avenue and buys, I don't know, a bunch of iPhones and a Mac, okay? And pays whatever the sales tax. There's a great big Apple store on Fifth Avenue. That's a lot of fun to go to, by the way. And buys all those things, gets charged the sales tax, and then goes home. They don't get their sales tax back. On the other hand, if I go to Switzerland and buy a watch in Switzerland and pay a VAT, if I'm coming back to the United States at the airport, I can get all my VAT back. So, I mean, there's I think it's got nothing to do. VAT is simply like a sales tax. I got an email from a guy yesterday in Florida saying, "Hey, you know, the Florida sales tax people are coming after us because that's the only tax they have is sales tax." because they like to brag about all kinds of, well, we don't have any income tax or anything like that. I think they do have sales tax and property taxes. So, it's not a matter of that's going to do any. The only thing it's going to do is upset a very complex world trade and mess everything up. Not too many years ago, China had a similar thing, but this was very specific. They got mad at the Swiss because they were their own citizens, Chinese citizens, were buying watches from Switzerland, or they'd come here in the United States and buy Swiss watches, go home and start and use these watches to bribe bureaucrats for different kinds of favors for government contracts. And so they had a big crackdown, no more Swiss watches in the Swiss. This is how I got my Vacheron Constantin Historique Americain 1921, because there was an oversupply of watches that were made for export to China. And so they had all of these extra watches. They sent them back, and they were having a hard time selling them. And so a number of them went into the secondary markets, and that's where I found a $10,000 drop on a brand new Vacheron Constantin. Okay. Now that was something that just dealt with watches, and Swiss watches in particular. So now what we're seeing is that for some calculation, and I'm not sure where it comes from, there's 31% of 31% of all Swiss goods are going to be they're going to be taxed 31%. Okay, what's happened in the past when they have things like that? Well, smuggling, there'll be a lot of smuggling going on. The smugglers all were very happy with that kind of thing, just like the organized crime was back in the 1920s during Prohibition. So we have this thing, and the idea, oh, okay, well, suddenly this is going to turn American industry around. There are a lot of ways to do that. I mean, if that one thing is that back in the 70s, the American cars were these big slab-sided nothings. It just really, there was no innovation. On the other hand, the Japanese are coming up with all these innovative cars that are much better gas mileage, better in so many ways. And so people started, in the United States, started buying those. So I think that had the American car makers gone more for innovation rather than this penny pitching bottom line, let's not change anything, and we can convince people to buy our cars, and it didn't work out too well. And so now we're at a position, and I'd like to see America make really great cars. The one car that they seem to have had real success with has been the Tesla. Well, that people are really mad at what's his face, Elon Musk, and he's got like just acres of unsold cars because Americans are mad at him, and plus the fact the other half never believed in climate change or anything like that, and so they still believe everything everything will be fine if we just go back to the old ways. That's not going to happen. But I guess the I don't know. Those are my views on it, and I think, as the Southern sheriff used to tell the good old boys, or the Dukes of Hazzards, that was his boy, you're in a heap of trouble, and I think we're in a heap of trouble, to tell you the truth. And what's going to happen, I don't know. I mean, like you have you take, if the Swiss drop the prices of their luxury watches by 31% for American trade, um, that wouldn't help at all. I mean, the goal is to have either more American production of it. We don't have, I mean, who do we have who are Swiss quality watchmakers who are actually doing it? Roland Murphy, maybe. That's about it. But, you know, he only does so much. Okay, so the Swiss don't really buy much from us. Why wouldn't they reduce? Yeah, you know, Dominic, I tell you, see, that's the thing is that we, there should be Teslas all over Switzerland, but they're not for some reason. You know, that would be a perfect place to sell them, by the way, but they're not because they're not attracted to them or for some other reason. I don't know what it is. Cambodia is a very, very poor country. Same thing. Well, Vietnam is, relatively speaking, but you know they're mad at now. They have these big tariffs against Vietnam, and like, oh, that's going to bring the textile business back. Not for the prices the Vietnamese can produce them for, and I think therein lies the problem. And we have this, like I said, we have this big trade deficit, and then we have American factories. They outsource things. They outsource it to Mexico. They outsource it to Asia. Outsource it to wherever. And that's not the places they outsource it to's fault. It simply makes more economic sense. During Trump's first administration, he had promised this factory in someplace, I think it's in Ohio, that, hey, if you stay here, we're going to give you all these benefits. And they did. Well, the company still outsourced, it moved its factories to Mexico. So I don't know what's going to happen. What do you guys think? Okay, let's see. No biggie, Sal. Wondering if we see a big spike in demand for pre-owned pieces. Yeah, I think so. I mean, the watches that are already in the U.S., the ones that are sitting on the shelf at 1916 Company, I think they're going to be doing just dandy. Same thing with 47th Street. Or any of the, Florida has all of these. Florida is a great resource for watches. But that might dry up pretty quickly. There may be more one-to-ones sales. That might work too. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't see anything good coming of it because it hasn't worked before. It didn't work back in the 1880s or whenever they did that. It didn't work in the Hoover administration. That sparked a depression. I mean, oh boy. As the sheriff said, we're in a heap of trouble. Okay, so it may actually help everyone but the Americans because they're going to have this surplus of watches that Americans aren't going to be buying that'll be available to the rest of the world. So it might be sort of, instead of having an Asian crisis, we're having an American crisis. And it's time to cash in. Do I think the American watch industry will have a renaissance? You know, I live where we live. There's the American Watch and Clock Museum isn't 20 miles away from where I live, and I go visit it every now and then. And there used to be factories all over the place that made watches in this area and also up in Massachusetts. And Waltham watches they had these great watches. The Swiss were very concerned about them. And what Waltham did, was that they hired this new guy, and he decided that what was more important was to out-cheap the Swiss rather than outbuild them. And so the Waltham watches that really were top notch, they sort of went down the drain. And eventually Waltham went out of business. Uh, Brands like Hamilton, Longines, I think there are a number of Swiss brands that were originally American brands, but either because of lack of interest, or just screw ups. I don't know. I don't, I mean, we really don't have anybody. I mean, we have some people who think they are, but I don't think we have any real, oh, someone who could have a company like Rolex or H. Moser or anybody like that. That could happen. I mean, all of a sudden you can say, "Hey, we're going to make great watches." Uh, but like the Germans, most of their watches have Swiss movements in them. I don't know what's going to happen with that. It's sort of like it, it, it it's an unrealistic economic move because, I mean, in World War II, the population of this country was 100 and something thousand. All right. Today, it's 3 times as large. It's 300. It was 100 million. Now it's 360 million. So we're a very different place. The world is a different place. And so the idea is that we're gonna pull out an economic system that never worked. I don't know, you got to have Dominic, in order to have reciprocity, you got to have something that someone wants to buy. We're not buying Swiss watches because they're crap watches. We're buying Swiss watches because they're good quality watches in a mechanical way. As long as they get rid of the silicon, we'll be okay. Swiss will be okay. That's not going to happen. Okay, let's see some wisdom other than me and my big mouth. Trade wars have never been won. Stuart, that is the most succinct way you could put it, and you're right. Hey, Pierre Cadeau. Tariffs will unfortunately bring unemployment and force people to sell luxury items such as watches. Will this benefit the secondary market? It might. I don't know. I mean, one of the things, you see some guy who works on the assembly line at Ford, okay, or Chrysler, or one of the other American car companies. So they're working on the assembly line. They say, we're bringing American jobs back in a very narrow sector. The question is that here they're firing all of these people without any kind of rhyme or reason that I can see from the federal government. Well, we're going to slash the bureaucracy. They don't have a clue what a bureaucracy is. They ought to go to some place where they don't have bureaucracies and see what happens. But no, there are always going to be idiots in every aspect of government and business and every place. Okay, but usually not. This is an exception because it doesn't seem like you got somebody who's getting feedback. We'll see what happens. So I don't think there might be a retrenchment. There might be, who knows. In about a year and a half, there's going to be what they call a midterm election. And if a whole bunch of Republicans get thrown out of office, then that might be ring a bell, but I don't know what's going to happen. I just don't think that we have somebody who is very smart, to tell you the truth. I mean, being born rich doesn't make you smart. a guy with 6 bankruptcies and a felony conviction for money uh, manipulation, financial manipulations. Why they thought this guy was going to be a financial genius is beyond me, other than the fact that he tells everybody that he is. No, like I said, Southern Sheriff says, hey, boy, you're in a heap of trouble. So, hey, Jeff, your explanation of trade deficit versus tariff is, of course, spot on. Two different topics. Yeah, I know. Jeff, you're right. They are two different topics. But the point is, that's what they're using as an argument for the tariffs. Why is it that we are being misled by our leaders when it's so simple to realize? Jeff, I don't know. I mean, look, all countries have had screw ups. Who is the guy? Mussolini, the guy, the Italian premier. The French right now have Le Pen. They're worried about him. Uh, I think the Russians had a good leader for 5 minutes. He got kicked out. I don't know. I got the thing of it is that it's sort of like you're having a discussion with a deaf person. All right. And no matter what you say, they're not hearing you. And so I don't know. I think it's sort of like right now. I mean, the stock market has lost the American stock market has lost some $2 or $3 trillion in a few days. I mean, people who like my age, of a certain age, who are very much dependent on their investments, lose this huge amount of money. And I think, I'm going to get back to somebody's realize that you're dealing with just real idiocy. Hi, JC. How you doing? Truman, how are you? Now America can feel how it's like to pay 25 VAT. Truman, you are absolutely right. That's what the irony is. They're screaming about, well, the reason that we have a tariff on you guys is that you have a VAT on your own people and everybody else. That is one of the more interesting features of it. Like I said, we have all of the VAT that comes out of the for foreign buyers in Switzerland is returned. Same thing with VAT coming from the EU. Yeah, I don't know. You guys, it's like something. But the thing is that people voted for that, but most of the people, I don't think really were convinced that this guy could do more for the economy. One of the things that happened, first of all, Biden was a terrible communicator. He just wasn't very good at it. As he got older, he got worse, and that had to do with his stuttering. So he couldn't. He just was very poor communicating, and what he got handed when he took over was worldwide inflation. Now, that had nothing to do with anybody's policy. It had to do with a pandemic. But people acted like we were the only ones who had inflation. Everyone had inflation. And it's like I don't know. Like, it's just sort of crazy. It's just you're dealing with people who refuse to listen to anybody but their own self. And like I said, we'll find out what happens. Hey, John, as Betty Davis said, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride. I'm with Betty. My favorite water skiing. Okay. Hi, Orange Hand. Since watches are high margin and tariffs are only on wholesale prices, retail prices could be impact much lower. Heard 5 to 8% depending on how much brands and dealers will absorb. Okay. Yeah. Uh, one of the things, though, I think that what's going on, Orange, and this is what they are saying. We're waiting for a reality check here, and it's only on wholesale. If that's true, then let's see. Hi, Superman. How you doing, man? Yeah, interesting times. Yeah, apparently, isn't that a Chinese blessing and curse? May you live in interesting times. Man, I think we got the curse side. The Swiss are cunning and understand economics. I don't care if you're cunning or dumb as a box of rocks, as long as you understand this is basic economics. You're right, though, Phil. The Swiss are not idiots. Andrew, how you doing? Do you see the message from MBNF and MAD to raffle entrance? Long history short, if the new tariffs go into effect, you would therefore be responsible for 31% import charges on Swiss watches. I didn't see that. Hi, AJ. B bottom recovery. All right. I'm not sure what that means, but Gilberto, here's hoping Trump rescinds the tariffs after a few months. I wish they would rescind him. He's got, it's just too many bad things that this has been going on, and people are screaming bloody murder about it. And then, I don't know. Democrats, of course, they don't seem to help themselves. they they're worried about other kinds of things that they should be focusing on. That I think there's so many problems that have come up because of this whole thing. I mean, look at the guy that they put in charge of health, an anti-vaxxer, the only really crazy Kennedy. the guy's cousin said he was a former heroin addict. Oh, he'd be a good guy to put in charge of healthcare. It just sort of, it's almost like I I think Saturday Night Live is having a hard time doing parodies because it doesn't. The reality is so crazy. Yeah, that's the one, W, man. I thought it was a blessing too. Couple trillion here or there, no big deal. That's right. David, 6 trillion in 2 days, 6 trillion bucks. The guys on Wall Street, the Wall Street Journal, which is sort of the conservative economic mouthpiece, even they have been, telling Trump, don't do this. And of course, he doesn't listen. And it just really, it saddens me. Pretty sure these changes are much larger than what we are being fed. Oh, yeah. Oh, Jeff, I'm sure of it. And I think that's going to happen. I mean, like, we just had a new well put in, okay? Our old well sort of went south on us. So we had to put in a new well. So we're living like like primitives. We have our own water, we have solar, so we have our own electricity. And now we're looking to figure so that we're also, the solar is going to handle heat and cooling. And so we're totally self-sufficient. And I don't know, I think I better start putting in a corn crop in the back or something, because there's God knows what's going on. I feel very bad for especially younger people who are getting into the market. They want to buy a house, they can't afford it. Um, there's all kinds of things going on. We'll see what happens. It's like I said, we're in interesting times. Hey, Orange Han, per Andrew's point, tariffs might be good for ADs since retail e-commerce by brands will hit consumers with the full tariffs. ADs will only pay tariffs on wholesale prices. Okay, let's take a look at that. They only pay ADs. First of all, I don't know how many people still buy from ADs. I don't, except on the perhaps used ones. ADs basically jack up the price 100%. So if they buy if you buy, let's say, a $40,000 Patek Philippe, 20,000 goes to the AD. All right. This is according to Archie, and he knows this stuff. So anyhow, so that's one thing that is going to happen. All right. So instead of paying the tax that he would have if it's only on the wholesale that he buys it at wholesale, so he's buying it instead of for 40,000, he's paying 20,000. The tax on that 20,000 is how much? Well, 31%. Is like almost a third of what he is. So if he doubles that, then the price goes up. The 31% goes up in there. The idea that, oh, you're only going to be paying a few percentage points, I think we better wait and see on that one. JC, I think you're probably right. Oh, Truman, my knickers aren't in a twist. That's a cheap shot, but that's okay. Some people are cheap shot artists. This is not a matter of your knickers in a twist. This is a big economic thing, okay? If you just saw your retirement portfolio go down $6 trillion, you'd be maybe upset about it, but it's not a matter of this cheap. Save your cheap shots for when you go over and talk to Archie. Not here, though, okay? Yeah, it's lonely times. Francie Gallo, I wonder why all the blame is being pinned on Donald Trump for stock or retirement accounts. Blame your financial advisor. My financial advisor just jumped out of a 10-story window. This is you got to look. Trump doesn't take responsibility for anything. Okay, now if you want to join that crowd that it's not his fault, get real. I mean, really, it's time to get real. This guy's had 6 bankruptcies. If you've ever been on the bad side of a bankruptcy, let me tell you what happens. I was owed $250,000 on a book that I had published. The publisher was just totally irresponsible and was giving money to all of this vaporware and everything else. So he suddenly says, "Oh, I'm not going to be able to pay everybody." Okay, so what he does, he takes the money that he had left that he owed us, myself and several other authors, and he bought the best attorneys in LA. And so we were fighting. We had to fight that. Trump has had 6 of these bankruptcies. He's also had major failures with his plans in Mexico and Azerbaijan. I mean, this is not a why blame poor little Donnie Trump. I'll tell you why, because it's his fault and it's nobody else's. That's why blaming little Donnie Trump, who is a pathological liar to begin with. Now, I know some of you and maybe a lot of you voted for him. He won the election fair and square. No problem with that. When he loses, he tries to overthrow the government. But to say that, it's not his fault, it's somebody else's, it's ridiculous. So I think we better focus on what the problem is right now instead of giving excuses for this spoil. I mean, like, I don't know how many of you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth and $450 million to start off life. I sure as hell wasn't. Okay, enough of that. Sorry for getting pissed off. JC, in my opinion, this might be a way for the U.S. wants to redefine global. It might be, and it might not be a good thing, or it might be I mean, look, on global trade, it's not a matter of being good for the U.S. and bad for everybody else. Good global trade means it's good for everybody, and that's how things need to be fit in. Hi, Von Cruel. Okay, Jeff. Omelet pan time, is it? Okay, I went over. Which up? All right, guys. Well, listen. This is something that is going to affect us all. We don't know how yet, but in the past, the old history thing about if you don't pay attention to history, you're bound to repeat it. So buckle up. Anyhow, guys, thanks for coming. Sorry for getting pissed off. I apologize to you, Truman, and anybody else who I grumped at. But this is too big of a problem. Take care, guys.